Hi, I'm Debra Birnbaum with Gold Derby, and we're back for our slugfest with our pundits to debate who's going to get nominated for the Emmys. Welcome, Marcus Jones, to the team. Happy to have you.
Hello, nice to be here.
And welcome back to our returning champs, Scott Feinberg, Clayton Davis, and Pete Hammond.
Good to see you.
All right.
All right, so we're a few days away from the start of Emmy voting. Let's start with Comedy Series. Who do we think are going to get those coveted 8 slots? Scott, you want to start us off?
Sure. I think that, we are almost certainly going to see the return of last year's somewhat surprise winner, Hacks, and then The Bear, which had been widely predicted to win. I think we'll see Only Murders in the Building and Abbott Elementary back. Shrinking. There's a bunch of new kids on the block, most prominently The Studio, which I think is in, as is Nobody Wants This from Netflix. So really, I think in a way, we're talking about that 8th slot, maybe 7th and 8th slots that are still up for grabs. You could see sort of returning contenders, What We Do in the Shadows, Poker Face, things that we've seen before, or some new options, include English Teacher, The Four Seasons, and we could go on from there. I don't want to name every show on television, but those are the ones that I think are probably most in the mix.
So, Marcus, as the new kid, I'll let you go next. What do you have to say? Who do you think is going to get those 7th and 8th slots, assuming you agree with Scott's top 6?
No, I mean, I definitely agree. I think Hacks, Studio, Bear, Only Murders, Abbott. And yeah, I mean, I'm not as strong on Shrinking, but it makes a lot of sense. I think Apple has those 2 shows with that in The Studio, and so I think that's not too much to focus on. Netflix has a bigger issue in that they have a ton of comedies this year, which is uncharacteristic for them. And so Nobody Wants This is the most popular, and I do think that that's probably going to be nominated. But I think because there's such kind of a crash between Four Seasons, A Man Inside, some people love The Residents, that's kind of my biggest question mark. I think the other thing to bring up is to what level Etoile will factor, because I think that Amazon is really only pushing that and trying to do a play of like Kraft loves it, and so therefore will get in. And they were the first streamer to win this category, and so I wouldn't put it past them to kind of take it to the finish line. But yeah, I mean, What We Do in the Shadows was nominated last year, so it could just be that.
How much does nostalgia for a show having its final season factor in? Do you think it gets it that slot? Clayton, what do you think?
So I think I mostly agree with everyone. I think there's like a clear top 5 that feel locked for them of the returning shows, and then Studio, I think. Right now at the moment, time of recording, seems like the one to beat. My problem with Shrinking is that we were all here last time for that first season and thought it was a lock that time, and it really underperformed that day. So, I mean, it coming back, the hiatus really does affect shows. I think we underestimate that quite a bit. I think Netflix, to a certain point, Marcus is correct. They are juggling a lot of comedies. Coincidentally, they submitted the most comedies for a category that looks like it's going to be under-submitted this year. I've been tracking maybe about 70 comedies in total, and 12 of them are Netflix comedies, which is
crazy,
strange. But Nobody Wants This in Four Seasons, I think, are going to be their top performers, and maybe that splits a little bit. I'm wondering what We Do in the Shadows does, because I feel like we underestimate it each and every year, and it keeps popping up. And it's the final season, and there's a reason for that probably not to happen one last time. I'm looking for kind of the res dogs of this lineup, and I've been staring at Righteous Gemstones for some time now, which has never traditionally done well with the Emmys, but something is in the water now this time, and I'm looking at it as like a potential on the day. It kind of beefed up its nomination tally. So I think that's in the conversation. In terms of Prime Video, yeah, Etoile was like the initial get, but I think overcompensating, which I think they're going for the jury duty type of like, hit, at the right moment. And it actually is a great show, and I see that begrudgingly because it's not supposed to be, I don't think, but it is such a great show. And being a surprise entry does do a lot for some series. So I think comedy for me is the most competitive of all the series categories this year. My opinion.
I just want to mention also, none of us have said The Rehearsal, which has gotten hot.
I was just going to bring it up.
At
I
the
mean,
end.
given all of the press, does it work for it or against it?
It's interesting. I don't know if in this time where we're always trying to put a certain series into a box, it doesn't quite fit into the comedy series box as well. Like, there was chatter about it initially trying to go scripted variety, and I think maybe that would have been a bit more appropriate. But I don't know. I think it got a lot of press. I don't know if it's going to break through for series. By the way, Jury Duty, speaking of the double, that first when that came, that like sucked up all the oxygen that would have went to The Rehearsal that go around. So second seasons are hard.
All right, Pete, your turn to weigh in. What gets your 7th and 8th slot?
What, am I the only one that actually votes on these here?
I vote.
I'm a voter.
Too? Okay. For me, since I was in Hacks season 1, a premiere episode.
Thank you for the disclosure.
On the
Well
on
done.
the basis of my performance,
Alone.
we'll put Hacks in there, and all the ones you said, the returning ones, they're going to get in. So there's only a few, but Nobody Wants This, I think, is the top one that will definitely get in. I don't believe it's well. I don't care how much press they do or how much they try to force it down our necks. I don't think that's registering in a big way among people I talk to. And, The Rehearsal that you just mentioned, I've never seen. So I don't know that. And I may represent a lot of people there. It just has not registered with me. And, I think it's a tough category. It always is. You never know. The Bear, I think, is over in terms of winning. I don't see it winning again.
But it gets nominated.
Too many people last year. The reason Hacks won also, in addition to being a great show, is a lot of people just don't feel The Bear belonged in that category. And, and that's a problem. And I think that's still a problem for The Bear. Good a show. It's a very good show. There's no question about that. But I don't think it's going to win.
But at least all the other shows we're talking about are funny. They have that in common.
I think that's overplayed. Like, a good show is a good show. I think what happened with The Bear last time is that they use the new season to promote the old season. And
they're doing that this year too.
Yeah.
That has always been the problem with The Bear. It's won a season too early every time for certain performances. And I think that was true for season 2. Season 2 felt like a harrowing drama. But season 3, which is what they're voting on now, they really did turn up the category. They set Maddie Matheson in there, and they were like, go make us a comedy. And that's a lot. So this will also depend on what season 4 does. And
exactly, yeah.
That new season drop in the middle of voting can sway voters one way or
I would actually argue it's a very savvy marketing campaign because you get more bang for your buck.
Sure.
Right.
No one has mentioned Mid-Century Modern. Is that breaking in?
God, yeah. I love that show, and it's really good. It's got a very strong shot to win in supporting actress for Linda Lavin.
Yeah.
And it's also a classic kind of comedy. It's actually very funny, and I don't know that there's room for it. We'll have to see, but it's those guys, Max and David, have created a show that really works on its own terms, and you got Hulu behind it, but we'll see. But I do think we should mention Mid-Century Modern, no question.
I think Jimmy Burrows is getting in for sure in directing. He's like one of the staples.
Yeah.
And I think Linda Lavin totally could get nominated. I hope Richard Kind really factors in because Homeboy has never been nominated, and he's so funny on that show in a real significant way. And Mid-Century Modern is something that if you give it a shot, it really does its job. It's a good callback, but it's, in this kind of multicam, not as much in the conversation era, it will be interesting to see how people take to it. I think Nathan Lane could also factor into lead actor, but there's probably a lot fewer slots there for him.
Well, that's a perfect segue to talk about the lead actor category. Thank you, Clayton.
Yeah. I wanted to mention actually in the lead actor category, and to plug my very first live actor side, which I taped last week. It's going to be on this week, and it's Ted Danson, who I think will break through for sure in this comedy category. And remember, a lot of the voters in the Emmys are old. And this show is about them. So it's mid-century modern in a sense too, but don't underestimate the appeal of what these shows are saying. And that show also blends comedy and drama, but it's largely comedy. Man on the Inside for Netflix, which does have, somebody said it's got a lot of contenders here, and they do. I loved 4 seasons, but I don't know that that's going to break in. But this one definitely with Ted Danson. He's an Academy favorite, and remember he was nominated 11 times in a row for Cheers.
So who do you bump out?
Like that's the thing. Like who do you bump? It's that category. You've got Jeremy Allen White coming back, Siegel, Short, and Steve Martin from Only Murders. I think Seth Rogen's in there for the studio. Probably also Jason Segel for Shrinking. So it's like,
does Adam Brody get in?
Adam Brody for sure.
Yeah. So it's just really like, do you bump one of the Only Murders guys?
Let's also
that's happened before, but yeah.
Clayton. And I would say let's note here, they're very likely going to be just 5 nominees here. We're not going to hit the 80 submission tally unless there's a tie. That's how we ended up with it last year. One of the lead actor or lead actress comedy had a tie, and they have parody. So unless that happens again, we're likely to get 5. And I think, it gets really top heavy, and
there's gonna be a lot of heartbreak.
Matt Berry got in last year, and I think that's where the tie was in lead actor comedy, because Matt Berry and DeFaro, I think, both tied, and they were 5-6, and that's what allowed Selena to get in last year. I think the thing with 4 seasons and Steve Carell in particular, I know Carell and Faye are going lead. I think the show is great. I really think it works as an ensemble. I think he's a very thin lead, and I think supporting would have been a much better, stronger play for him, especially given what happens later in the season. I think it just
spoiler alert.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would have been better for him. So I think because of that, he may have a hard time. But I think there are just 2 locks, and that's Seth Rogen and Jeremy Allen White. Even Martin Short, I think, is vulnerable, even with winning,
despite his wins.
SAG win, because precursors in this space, in Emmy space, don't usually matter that much. Ask Sam Elliott how his SAG win for 1883 is going. Like, sometimes it just doesn't cross over.
I think, though, it's hard in this era of there is so many shows to watch, so many people I talk to, especially when you go to events. I'm sure you all have experienced the same thing. They're just like, they're overwhelmed by the amount of shows that they have to watch. So I think name recognition gets you half the battle.
Yeah.
That's like a name like Ted Danson on the ballot is just like, yes, I love Ted Danson. I've loved him for years. I'm voting for him.
And by the way, he got him for Mr. Mayor, like for no reason whatsoever.
Like, well, that's totally what I mean. He's a favorite. Yes. And a lot of times, the way they vote, we vote.
It's a popularity contest.
Yeah, it really gets into that. So don't discount.
Yeah, if it was thinner, but like the other people he's competing against have all been nominated for their roles before, outside of Adam Brody, which Adam Brody's show is a much more popular show on Netflix.
I agree.
And Seth Rogen.
I mean, there's no world where Jeremy Allen White's not getting nominated, or Rogen. I would be shocked if Brody doesn't get in.
Well, where's the room for all of this, Scott?
There's no room. We need more comedy so we get more slots, which is going to be
So sure. I'm not so sure about Seth Rogen. I don't know.
I think it's his to lose, actually.
The show to beat.
I think it's yep.
I'm not so sure. We'll see.
All right. I want to give some time to talk about the actresses. Okay, it's Jean Smarts.
Yeah, that's familiar.
I know. Jean Smarts to lose for sure. But who else is getting on that ballot with her? Clayton, you want to take us down the list?
Sure. I mean, Jean Smarts to lose, but Quinta, I think, is in. I think this category is a lot more fluid than most others. Like, yes, Io feels like the safe bet, but as the only actor that didn't win in acting, I mean, last year that was nominated. I mean, Bear won 5 out of 6 acting categories, and she was the one that did it, and doesn't do a lot of press for it. I think, ask Harrison Ford the first time for Shrinking, campaigning still matters. So I think when you're not out there as much, you leave yourself vulnerable. I think Kristen Bell is in. Catherine Hahn. So Agatha All Along is like it may be the sole nom for the show in a major way,
And
but
potential double nominee, Catherine Hahn, for studio.
we underestimate how double nominees can easily happen at the Emmys. Ask A.D. Bryant, when she got nominated for SNL, also got in for Shrill, and like I haven't really met anyone in real life that's ever watched Shrill, even though it's a great show. But
You've met me. I love it.
I met it. I watched it.
So when you, I mean, that's not us. when you're checking off the ballot, sometimes they're just looking for their buddies, and they're
No,
looking
it's a
for
name.
their
It's a
buddies.
checklist. It's a name.
So, but I do, in the Matt Berry way, watch out for Natasha Demeter. I think I'm saying that right, from What We Do in the Shadows. I think that's our Matt Berry this year, possibly. But also Kate Hudson's in the con.
Kate Hudson could
Okay,
be.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. There's gonna be.
Kind of everywhere.
There we go. That we can
Yeah.
agree on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Step you need a ton.
Yes. Pete, what do you think?
Yeah, I like Kate Hudson, by the way. Yeah. I don't know that they've seen the show in numbers that they need to, and that's the problem. Especially when you have this large branch of actors voting here. It's so that's why we see the same people over and over again. And it's always been the Emmys problem that they just keep going to the same well and find new things. But it would be nice to see Kate nominated here. I think it's a really strong performance. It's a very funny show. Again, it's Netflix. I don't know, how many are going to get in here. I do think Kristen Bell, and, maybe Tina Fey. Tina Fey's got a lot of residual love. So it matters to see if they have seen that show.
Well, and that's the thing is I think some of these Netflix shows punch above their weight because everybody watches Netflix. It's just like the reflexive thing. When you're not even consciously seeking out TV, as a TV Academy member, seeking out shows or whatever, the reflex for more people than any other place is to go to Netflix. And I think that that is part of why even shows that may not be artistic masterpieces cannot be underestimated, like monsters or things we'll get to in other categories where half the battle is just getting people to watch your show.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So Feinberg brings up an overall point that I make often. The name of the game often, sadly, is how many people have watched each show.
Right.
That's literally like 70% of your campaign.
Yeah.
If you're watched, then it can kind of do its thing for you. But if you haven't been watched, then you have to get really specific and particular. That's why, even though I don't think it's widely watched, I also watch out for Bridget Everett for Somebody Somewhere, because there's a passionate base for that show that does exist. It's how many are going to come out for it, because the same way the other two got in for writing the last season, Bridget Everett also wrote parts of the show. Like, does that help? There, and it's great.
Okay, she can get in there. I think simply for a comedy actress, it's Jean, Io, Quinta, and two Netflix actresses. One of them's probably Kristen Bell. I think the other is Catherine Hahn. But I've heard a lot of people talk about watching The Residents, and Uzo Aduba has won more Emmys than we think she has. So I
There you
wouldn't
go.
discount her.
Yeah,
That's
she's
another
a
category.
favorite. She definitely gets in a lot. That's true too. I haven't seen that show, but I don't know if she gets in
See,
for everything.
Even we can't keep up with everything. All right. We're going to have to end the comedy conversation there. Thank you so much. See you next time.